I transferred $10,300 to help my family fix the roof, then got a call from my cousin. By the way, you're not invited to the housewarming. It's mostly close family. My mom added, you'll understand someday. I just smiled, froze the renovation account, and pulled my name from the mortgage. By morning, I had 42 missed calls, and they were outside, screaming through the intercom. I opened and, "What day is the house warming?" There was a pause on the other end. My cousin Mia's voice came back lighter, almost rehearsed. "Oh, you're not invited. It's just close relatives." I thought she was messing with me. I even chuckled a little, but she didn't say anything else. Just sat there in the silence like it made perfect sense. Then, like they'd rehearsed it, my mom's voice floated in from somewhere behind her. "You'll understand someday." I didn't say a word. I just ended the call. It wasn't even about the party. Not really. It was the fact that they'd been blowing up my phone for weeks, begging for help, dragging me into another crisis I didn't create. And once I gave them what they wanted, again, I was disposable, a helpful stranger, not family. The house was bought with a mortgage 6 months earlier. It was old. Someone else had lived there, and they knew it needed work. But Mia wanted it. She called it charming. My mom said it had good bones. And my dad acted like they'd stumbled on a once-in-a-lifetime deal. Problem was, the roof was barely holding on. First rainstorm, there were leaks in the hallway and the upstairs bedroom. Then the ceiling started to sag above the laundry room. That's when the begging started. I said no. At first, I reminded them I'd already helped them qualify for the mortgage by co-signing. That alone should have been enough, but Mia wouldn't let up. My mom called crying. My dad, who almost never asked me for anything, said they were desperate, that they'd pay me back, that they'd put it in writing. They just needed $10,300 for the roof repair, and then they'd be fine. I told them straight up, this is the last time. I meant it, and I made sure they heard it. But they got the money, sent me updates, acted grateful, and then just cut me out like I was nothing. Not even a chair at the party. That's what really got to me. They didn't just forget, they made a choice. So, I logged into the contractor's payment portal and froze the account. Every dollar I transferred was still untouched. Then I went further, called the mortgage company, and had my name removed. They could carry it on their own. I wasn't interested in being the invisible safety net anymore. The next morning, I woke up to 42 missed calls. Mia, my mom, my dad, even a few numbers I didn't recognize. My phone lit up with texts that started polite, then turned into full-blown panic. By noon, they were outside my building. I watched them from my window 5 floors up. My mom was yelling into the intercom, my dad pacing, Mia sitting on the front steps like this was all some misunderstanding. I didn't go down. I didn't even answer the buzzer. I just stood there holding my coffee and realized something I probably should have known a long time ago. This family only remembers you when they need you. And they forget fast. They showed up again around 7 o'clock. Just the two of them this time. I didn't even have to ask who it was when the buzzer rang. There was something about the rhythm. Quick, urgent, like they were trying to stop themselves from giving up. I buzzed them in without saying anything. They didn't yell. No demands. No theatrics. Just walked in like they'd been invited. My dad paced. My mom sat down like she was settling into a doctor's office chair. It was awkward for a full minute before either of them spoke. My dad cleared his throat. "If the contractor's account is frozen," he said, "and your name's off the mortgage, then look, just lend us the $10,300 directly. Please, we'll pay you back. We can sign something." He said it like he was offering a fair deal. My mom added, "You want to do things officially? Fine, let's do it. We'll write a contract." I didn't answer right away. I just sat there staring at them, thinking about how fast things had turned. A week ago, they were acting like I was some stranger who didn't deserve an invite to their big celebration. Now, they were trying to look responsible, honest. It would have been easier to say no. It would have felt better. But I also knew what would happen next. If they couldn't get the money, the roof wouldn't be fixed. They'd start missing mortgage payments. The house would start falling apart. Eventually, they'd come knocking with bags and stories asking to crash at my place. For a few weeks, that wasn't going to happen. So I said yes. Not because I trusted them, but because I wanted to control what came next. I told them I'd transfer the money under one condition, written agreement signed by both of them, and I wanted it reviewed by someone neutral. They looked surprised, but nodded. They agreed too easily, which made me even more suspicious. But 2 days later, we sat down in my living room and signed a simple contract. They'd repay me in monthly installments starting 60 days after the money hit their account. The contractor got paid the same day. Repairs started a week later. Things were quiet after that. Not warm, not tense, just quiet. My parents didn't call unless they had to. Mia vanished completely. I saw some pictures online of her throwing mini get-togethers in the yard under the new roof, smiling with neighbors like nothing ever happened. No mention of me. Then one weekend, my Uncle Mark came into town. He's my mom's brother, older by 10 years, never married, and never really involved in family drama. He has this way of watching people. He doesn't speak much, just listens, and you always feel like he's 2 steps ahead of the conversation. He stopped by their place to see the renovations. They gave him the full tour. New shingles, cleaned gutters, fresh drywall in the upstairs hallway. He said my mom offered him a grilled cheese and tomato soup, and they were chatting like everything was perfect. What they didn't know was that he wasn't in the bathroom when they thought he was. He was standing in the hallway just out of view. That's when he heard them. My dad asked if I'd been bothering them about the contract yet. My mom laughed and said, "Oscar still thinks we're going to pay him back. Let him. He owes us more than that for everything we've done for him." Then she said, "He'll get over it. He always does." My uncle didn't walk in right away. He just stood there listening, trying to decide if he should interrupt or let them keep talking. Eventually, he stepped in like nothing had happened and sat down to finish lunch. The next day, he called me and asked if we could meet. Said he had something important to talk about. We met at this small diner off the highway. He sat across from me with his hands folded on the table and told me the whole thing word for word. What he'd heard, what they said, the tone they used. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. When he finished, he leaned back and said, "What money were they even talking about?" So, I told him everything, the $10,300, the contract, the promise, the timeline. He didn't say much after that. Just looked at his coffee like he was trying to decide whether to keep drinking it or throw it in the trash. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Everything made sense now. The fake politeness, the sudden cooperation. It was all theater. They never intended to pay me back. They were just waiting for me to forget. But I don't forget. I called a lawyer the next morning. Part 3, the filing. I handed my lawyer the whole file in a manila folder. The contract, the bank statements, texts confirming the amount. He didn't even blink when I said the amount. $10,300. I guess when you handle family lawsuits regularly, nothing surprises you. He read everything carefully, nodding as he flipped through the pages. "They signed this willingly?" he asked. I nodded. "And they haven't paid a single installment? Not even a conversation about it?" I said. He leaned back in his chair. "All right, we'll give them a chance to respond officially, but if they don't, we file." He drafted a formal demand letter, clean, precise, and polite in the most threatening way. It outlined the terms of the contract, their failure to pay, and gave them 15 days to respond or resolve the matter. We sent it to both my parents' address and their email. I didn't say a word to them. I waited. 15 days passed. Nothing. Not even a text pretending they just seen it. Not even a passive-aggressive call from Mia, which honestly surprised me. So we filed civil court. The lawsuit went through and the legal papers were served. They didn't call me. They didn't write. But 3 days later, I looked up from my desk at work and saw my mom standing in the lobby. My dad was behind her holding his phone, probably recording just in case things went sideways. My heart dropped, not out of fear, out of pure embarrassment for them. I walked up to the glass and didn't even open the door. I just mouthed, "You can't be here." My manager walked up behind me and asked if everything was okay. I said, "Yes," and they finally left. That night, I got the call from Mia. "You actually filed? Are you serious, Oscar? You're suing your own parents for what? A couple grand? You should be ashamed. Click. No response. I didn't explain myself to people who saw me as an ATM. A week later, I got an email from their lawyer. I guess they finally decided to take it seriously. He wanted to discuss a resolution. His tone was professional, but I could read the subtext. They wanted this to go away and fast. My lawyer and I met with him virtually. He danced around the subject at first, then finally said they were willing to settle if I agreed to drop the lawsuit. I asked how much they were offering. Half, he said. $15,150. I laughed. Not even because it was funny. It was the kind of laugh that just slipped out tired and disgusted. No deal, I said. Full amount plus $2,000 for damages. He blinked. $2,000 for what? For the stunt they pulled, I said, lying, stringing me along, and making it clear they never planned to pay me back. You want it gone, you pay. He said he'd speak with them and get back to us. Took another week, more silence. Then suddenly, an email with a PDF of a transfer confirmation, $12,300, the full amount, every cent. They caved. No apology, no message, just the money. I stared at the screen for a long time. I should have felt vindicated, maybe even relieved. But I didn't. All I felt was this heavy silence. Like the kind you get when a door slams behind you and you know it's never opening again. I thought that was the final chapter, but I underestimated Mia. And I didn't expect what Mark was about to do. I hadn't spoken to Mark since the diner. He didn't call to say he heard I'd filed. Didn't text when the money hit my account. But about a week later, he messaged me out of nowhere. Come by the house Sunday. Need to talk. Everyone will be there. I stared at the text for a while. Everyone didn't sound good. I asked if this was about the lawsuit. He just replied, "It's time to clear the air." I almost didn't go. I didn't want another ambush. Another circle of guilt-tripping lectures disguised as family meetings. But Mark had been the only one who was honest with me, the only one who hadn't tried to play both sides. I owed him that much. When I showed up, their driveway was full. Mia's car, my parents', even my aunt's little silver sedan. I parked down the street and walked in with my guard all the way up. Everyone was already seated in the living room. Mark was standing like he was hosting some kind of intervention. My mom didn't look at me. My dad barely nodded. Mia smirked when she saw me. Mark didn't waste time. "We're not leaving this room," he said, "until we talk about what happened and until some apologies are made." My mom scoffed. My dad leaned back like he was preparing for battle. Mia rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd pass out. Mark looked directly at my parents. "You two took money from your son, lied to him, and laughed behind his back about never paying him. That's not just bad parenting. That's disgraceful." No one spoke. Then my mom stood up. "We raised him, fed him, paid for everything. He's acting like we're strangers, like we didn't give him everything we had." Mark didn't flinch. "That's not a debt he owes forever." My mom turned to me. "You had the money and instead of helping us, you made a scene. You humiliated us. What kind of son does that?" I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have a response, because it was pointless. I saw it in her face. She truly believed I owed her. Not just the money, my silence, my patience, my dignity. Mark tried to bring it back together. He asked them to apologize. Said we could all move forward, start over. My dad crossed his arms. "We don't need a son who treats us like enemies. If he wants to cut us off, fine. But don't expect us to chase after him." I stood up. That was enough. I looked at Mark, gave him a nod, and walked out. 1 week later, I came back, but not to talk. I brought a friend with me, someone from work. He waited in the car while I rang the doorbell. My dad opened the door, surprised. I handed him the keys to the car I'd given him 2 years ago. Told him to consider it returned. Said it was time he bought his own. He didn't say anything. I walked away. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Not Mia, not my mom, not my dad, just Mark and sometimes my aunt. The first few days after I returned the car, I kept expecting some kind of explosion. A phone call, a confrontation, something loud and messy. But nothing came. Not even a text. The silence was louder than any fight. At first, it felt like I was holding my breath, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But then a week passed, then another. No calls from my mom. No fake apologies from my dad. No sarcastic messages from Mia. It was like they'd erased me completely. Or maybe they were waiting for me to cave. I didn't. Instead, I started sleeping better, waking up without that weight in my chest. The feeling I didn't even realize had been there for so long. Like I was constantly waiting for someone in my family to need something, accused me of not doing enough, or remind me of what I owed. Now it was just me. Mark called me that weekend. He didn't ask how I was or if I was okay. He just said, "They've gone quiet, haven't they?" I said, "Yeah, they will stay that way. At least until they need something again." We talked for a while. He told me about how after I left that night, things got ugly. My dad said I was lost, ungrateful. My mom cried, not because she regretted anything, but because she couldn't believe I would embarrass them like that. Mia apparently was ranting about how I made them look stupid in front of the entire extended family. Not once did any of them talk about the money they stole, just how I reacted to it. Mark didn't defend me that night. He said he just let them talk until they ran out of steam. Then he left and hasn't been back since. My aunt, his wife, told them straight up they brought it on themselves. They didn't take that well either. A few days later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address, no note, just a photo. It was me, my parents, and Mia taken at a barbecue maybe 10 years ago. We were all smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. On the back, in familiar handwriting, it said, "This is what matters. Remember who you are." I held it in my hand for a long time. It wasn't an apology. It was bait. A reminder, a way to say you were one of us. You still can be. Just let this go. I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. The next week, an old cousin I barely talked to messaged me on Facebook. Said heard about the situation and wanted to know my side. I didn't respond. Then another cousin messaged. Said he'd spoken to my mom and that she was heartbroken and that she just wanted her son back. That phrase, "just wanted her son back," kept ringing in my head. It wasn't about love. It was about control. They didn't miss me. They missed having leverage. The best part, my bank account was quiet, too. No surprise charges, no mysterious family emergencies, no Venmo requests, just stillness. Mark and I met up for dinner a few nights later. He ordered a steak. I stuck with pasta. We didn't talk about the lawsuit or the car or the photo in the mail. But as we finished, he looked up from his plate and said, "Mia's not done." I asked what he meant. "She's still talking," he said, "trying to rally people. She says you ruined everything. That this whole thing was never about money." I almost laughed, but he was serious. "She says she's going to make sure the family knows who you really are." I leaned back. "Let her." He nodded. "Just be ready. She's not done taking shots." I paid for the dinner. Not because I owed him, but because I wanted to. Because unlike them, he didn't take my kindness for weakness. And unlike them, he stayed. It didn't take long. Less than a week after dinner with Mark, I started getting tagged in random Facebook posts. Old family friends, people I hadn't seen since high school, suddenly sharing vague quotes about loyalty and betrayal. I ignored it. But then came the message from a girl I barely remembered from childhood church events. "Hey, I heard what's going on. Are you really suing your own parents? I don't want to judge. But wow." I didn't reply. The post kept coming. Someone shared a photo of Mia and my parents standing under the newly finished roof with a caption. "When family turns their back on you, you still stand strong. Grateful for love that doesn't come with a price tag." Subtle, classy. Mia was setting the stage for her final performance. I didn't even need to dig to know what was happening. She wanted to paint herself as the loyal daughter, my parents as the victims, me as the cold outsider who let money ruin the family. What she didn't realize is that by then I didn't care. But Mark did. One Sunday, he invited me over again. This time, just a quiet dinner with him and my aunt. No surprises, no audience. When I got there, he showed me a group chat Mia had started. She'd pulled in cousins from both sides, a few uncles, even some people who weren't even technically family. Her first message was a wall of text accusing me of destroying the family with lawyers and ultimatums. She claimed I was unstable, bitter, that I had threatened my parents and manipulated Mark. Mark had said nothing in the chat. Just let it run. But now he was done. I'm putting a stop to this. He said, not for you. For me. I'm not sitting by while she rewrites the story. The next week he called a family meeting. But this one was different. It was at his house, his rules, and only people who agreed to listen, really listen, were invited. I didn't want to go. He said I didn't have to, but I did. We sat in his living room again. My aunt, 2 cousins, and an uncle I hadn't spoken to in years were all there. My parents didn't show. Neither did Mia. Mark stood and spoke first. Calm, direct. He told them everything. The money, the contract, the lies. He read parts of the contract out loud. Told them what my parents had said when they thought no one was listening. He didn't embellish. He didn't dramatize. He just laid it all out. Then he said something I didn't expect. I stood by for years while they leaned on Oscar like he was an extra income. I saw it. I didn't speak. But I won't let Mia poison the whole family just because he finally said no. No one defended my parents. No one defended Mia. One cousin nodded slowly. Another one said they weren't surprised. The silence that followed was the first time I felt something close to closure. I stood up, said I wasn't here for sympathy or sides, just the truth. And now that it was out there, I was done explaining myself. On the way out, Mark handed me a small envelope. Said he didn't want to mention it in front of everyone. Inside was a note from his wife and a gift card for groceries. Something small, symbolic. For all the dinners you missed because you were busy helping everyone else. Now it's your turn. That night I went home and blocked every number except his and my aunt's. Whatever came next from my parents or Mia didn't matter anymore. They could scream into their echo chamber forever. I wasn't listening. The update 9:30 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole. It was Mia. Not just Mia. She was holding a duffel bag. Standing alone in the hallway like someone who didn't plan on going home that night. I opened the door halfway. Didn't say anything. She looked tired. Not dramatic, not smug, just tired. Her voice was flat. I need a place to stay. I almost laughed. I thought it was a setup. I waited for the punchline for a camera crew to jump out of the stairwell. But she just stood there, not moving, not blinking. My roommate kicked me out, she said. Long story. I didn't know where else to go. I told her no. She didn't argue. She just stood there for another few seconds like she expected something to shift. Then she nodded slowly, turned, and walked back down the hallway. I closed the door and leaned against it, trying to process what had just happened. The next morning, Mark called. I told him what happened. He didn't sound surprised. Yeah, he said. She burned some bridges lately. Your parents aren't helping her either. They're struggling to cover mortgage payments. I think they thought you'd come back and bail them out eventually. That hit harder than I expected. Not because I felt bad, but because even after everything, they still believed I'd fold. That the guilt would creep back in and I'd show up with a check and a smile. A few days later, I saw Mia sitting alone outside a coffee shop near my building. She didn't see me. She was hunched over her phone, looking like a completely different person than the one who smirked through the housewarming plans. No more gloss, just someone who had run out of plans that I didn't approach her. Whatever story she wanted to tell now, whatever explanation, apology, or excuse, I didn't need to hear it. The most unexpected part wasn't that she came to me. It was that I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not pity, just done. And it was the most peaceful feeling I've had in years.